Mic check. All praise to the Most High. Shalom, family. Let me go here real quick. Turn this down real quick. All right. Oh, crap. Hold on. Oh, you know what I did forget? Let me pull this up real quick. I got to get something else. Shucks, I forgot about that. All right, I'm going to hold that. All right. Shalom, Israel. All praise to the Most High. We back at it with sound doctrine. It's been a couple of weeks. We had a whole lot going on between tabernacles and all the various feast days, atonement, all of that good stuff came up. So about 3 weeks, I think it was 3 weeks, that we ain't had sound doctrine, but we back at it again. So tonight, we going to be talking about, all praise to the Most High. We're going to be talking about the law of uncleanness. We're still in the series of Through Torah, going through Torah to break down the different segments of the law. Let's go to Proverbs first. Yeah, I know I always open up with my two scriptures. Proverbs chapter 4. And we're going to read verse 2. Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 2. And this might be a two-part segment because it's a lot. It's enough, rather. Reading into the laws of uncleanness, right? So Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 2. Read that when you got it out.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 4 and verse 2. For I give you good doctrine. For I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law.
It says, for I give you good doctrine, don't forsake my laws, right? A lot of us forget this. The doctrine, the teaching, the basics, the focus is the laws of God. And a lot of people know some of the laws. They know the main laws. They know the ones that everybody's keeping, fringes, the dress code, all of that good stuff. Sabbath, dietary law. But then we get into more intricate things like even the law of uncleanness, how that works, when that works. What if I touch a dead coyote? What if I touch a dead human? What if I touch an unclean dead thing? What if I touch a clean dead thing? How does this work? When am I unclean? When am I considered unclean? When is it only for a day? When is it for longer than a day? When is it for a week? When is it for 40 days? So on and so forth, right? I've seen people who know so much about the scriptures but know so little about the basics. Something as simple as, and I've seen this with teachers. Years ago, we used to do this thing called Israelite Jeopardy. And it was a brother, he was like a history guru at the time when he was here. And he got hit with a question during Israelite Jeopardy, and we just knew he had it. The question was, name me the 10 Commandments in order. And you saw it in his face. He said, damn, I don't remember this. A lot of times we forget. It's so basic that we think we got it, but a lot of times we forget about it. And this foundational stuff, which is the Torah, which is the law, which is the instruction, is the thing that we should be revisiting all the time, because that is what's pertinent to your salvation, keeping the law and faith in Christ. So it says, for I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. That is the doctrine. That is the understanding. That is the focus. Go to Timothy. Let me see, is it first? No. Yes, 1 Timothy I lied. 2 Timothy, Salakia. 2 Timothy, chapter 4 and verse 3. This is why it's important to take heed to the good doctrine, right? Read that.
This is 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 2.
3.
Verse 3. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine.
The time is going to come. The time has come. This was referencing the future. The time is here. They will not endure sound doctrine, but what?
But after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears.
So after their own lusts, they will find people that are teaching the things that fulfill their lusts, having itching ears, having inquiring ears, being persuaded or being convinced in their mind, yeah, that's right. Because instead of fixing their own lusts, they say, let me use the Bible to justify my lusts, right? Read on.
For the time will come when they will not.
No, go ahead, read that from the top.
For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine. But after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears.
Verse 4.
And they shall turn away their ears from the truth.
And it says they're going to turn their ears away from the truth. Read.
And shall be turned into fables.
And will be turned unto fables. It said they're going to turn their ears from the truth. What is the truth? The law. What is the law? Sound doctrine. So they're going to turn their ear away from sound doctrine to chase after the things that fulfill their desires, whether it be contrary to the Bible or not. That's what be going on in people's heads. The time is going to come, it said, and the time is now. That's what's going on today. That's why you got all these crazy doctrines. You got teachers teaching that, dealing with prostitutes is okay. Beyond me. You got brothers teaching, well, show me specifically in here that I can't sleep with a prostitute. Because technically speaking, every woman's a prostitute because ain't none of them a virgin no more. That's insane. You got brothers in Israel teaching that it's okay to eat unlawful foods. You got people in Israel teaching that, oh, well, the other nations gained the exact same salvation as Israel. That's none of that's doctrinal. You got brothers teaching that. Show me, technically speaking, in the book, y'all got to stop saying we can't be marrying these other nations. Straying away from sound doctrine. There's a reason we have this whole thing. There's a reason for this, right? The Old Testament is called the Tanakh. For those of you who don't know what the Tanakh means, Tanakh is the Ta is Torah. That's what it stands for, Torah. Na is the Nevi'im, which is, I believe, the prophets. And then there's the songs and the other writings, which is the Ketuvim. That's what the Ka is for. Tanakh is 3 characters that stand for all of that, right? All of it is complementary one to another. What do I mean by that? Torah gives you instruction. The prophets in the history show you how people practiced those instructions. So if I'm watching Nehemiah tell people it's a sin to marry all of these other nations that were not in Deuteronomy 7, Nehemiah was the governor at that time. Ezra was the priest at that time. Ezra was about as close to the Most High as you can get being in captivity, because Ezra was talking to the angel directly when we read 2nd Ezra, right? So if he said it, I don't have the gumption to say Ezra got it wrong. I'm right. 2,400 years after Ezra's. The Lord ain't ever sent an angel to me, at least not that I know of. Ezra, I still ain't did a 7-day fast, took a break, then took another 7-day fast, then did a 7-day fast with just eating flowers. And I ain't talked directly to an angel. Ezra did. So if Ezra said, this is what the law is meaning, guess what? That's what the law means. I just don't got the heart to say anything otherwise. But there will come a time where people will decide, I want to do this. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up this book and justify it. We can't do that. We can't do that. There was going to be a time where people would stop enduring sound doctrine. That time is now. The time was back then too. We see all in the Old Testament, the New Testament that was going on too. That's been a thing. But it's prominent right now. So the goal is to endure sound doctrine, obey sound doctrine, follow sound doctrine, right? Now, it's specified that was the law. So we've been in this series, and honestly, we probably ain't even halfway through yet because there's so much in the Torah. Now we're on the law of uncleanness, and we're probably going to have two parts to this. Let's go to the book of I done lost my document. Oh, here it is. Let's go to the book of Leviticus. And I wanted to pull a slide up, but I completely forgot to send it over. So the word uncleanness in Hebrew is, for those who want to look it up, it's H2930. Modern Hebrew is pronounced Tameh. Paleo Hebrew is Tamah. The usage, the biblical usage, is unclean, impure, ethically or religiously, or ritually, or of places. The actual definition is foul in a religious sense, defiled, infamous, polluted, or simply unclean, right? Now, I want you guys to remember that. Now, it's very important to understand this because there are certain times where being unclean is a sin. There are times that it's not, right? And a lot of people, for years, at least in my walk, people that I've met have always equated being unclean as a sin. That's just not true. Not all the time. So we're going to show some times where it was a sin. We're going to show some times where it wasn't. Leviticus 11. Let's talk about this uncleanness. Leviticus chapter 11.
You want 7?
Let's start at verse 4.
Book of Leviticus chapter 11, verse 4. Nevertheless, these shall you not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof, as the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof. He is unclean unto you.
He is unclean. He is impure to you, right? Read.
And the coney, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof.
So all of these are the unclean animals that we are not supposed to consume, right? Drop down to verse 7.
And the swine, though he divided the hoof, he be unclean.
Read that from the top, verse 7.
And the swine, though he divided the hoof, and he be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you.
He's unclean to you, verse 8.
Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch.
Right.
They are unclean to you.
They are unclean to you. Drop down to verse 24. So it told you of the things that you cannot partake of because they are unclean. Now, people will say, well, this goes back to itching ears. People will say, well, I mean, yeah, it tells you not to, but when you look at the dietary law, it ain't saying like it's punishable by death. Like, God told you, and I'd have heard this from Christians, and I'd have heard this from Israelites justifying this. God told us not to do it because it's not healthy. So the reason why the Lord, first of all, stop trying to justify or reason as to why God told us to do what he told us to do or not told us to do what he told us not to do. We got a bad habit of that. God said don't do it, period. But they will try to justify and say, so technically it ain't like we're going to die for it. It's just God saying it would be in your best interest not to. Let's continue to read. Verse 24.
And for these ye shall be unclean. Whosoever toucheth the carcass of them shall be unclean until the even.
If you touch these unclean animals' carcasses, then you will be unclean. Go ahead.
And whosoever heareth aught of,
Beareth.
beareth out of a carcass of them shall wash his clothes, and he unclean until the even.
It says, and whoever needs to carry them out, like if your animal, let's say you had a pig on your farm and it dies, and you got to pick it up, put it in the barrel, roll it out. You're unclean until even. You have to go take a shower, wash your clothes, all of that good stuff. If you touch the carcass of this unclean animal, right? Go ahead.
The carcass of every beast which divideth the hoof, and is not cloven-footed, not cheweth the cud, or unclean unto you.
Right, read.
Every one that toucheth them shall be unclean.
If you touch the carcasses of these animals, you will be unclean. Read.
And whatsoever goeth upon his paws among all manner of beasts that go on all fours, those are unclean unto you.
Read.
Whose touches their carcass shall be unclean until the even.
You touch the dead body of any of these unclean animals, you will now be unclean. Verse 28.
And he that beareth the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. They are unclean unto you.
So wash your behind and wash your clothes, right? Actually, keep reading. We're gonna read the bulk of this chapter.
Verse 29. These also shall be unclean unto you among creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind.
Go ahead.
And the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole. These are unclean to you among all that creep.
These are all the creeping insects and bugs. You can't touch these. They're unclean. Well, if you can't touch their carcass, they're unclean. You can't eat these. They're unclean. Read.
Whosoever doeth touch them, when they be dead, shall be unclean unto the even.
And you gonna be unclean to the even if you touch them. So, for example, if you stepped on a slug or a snail and it died, well, I mean, hell, it died if you stepped on it. Now you're unclean until the evening, right? If you killed a mouse or found a dead mouse in your house or in your front yard or whatever, and you had to pick it up to throw it away, you're unclean until the evening, right? Some people get this mistaken with the law of a dead body, of a human. If you touch dead animals, specifically dead animals that are unclean, what does it mean to be unclean? It's talking about ritually, right? They're ritually impure. What does that mean? If you can't sacrifice it to God, you can't eat it. Simple. If you cannot sacrifice it to the Father, you cannot eat it. It is unclean and abominable, right? So, any of these things, if it dies, and you got to pick it up, or if you accidentally kill it, and you've touched it, you are unclean until the sun sets. Now, this is a part that a lot of people don't know as we continue to read. This is why we have to actually read this whole chapter, because this back end part is very important. We stopped at verse 31. We're on 32 now, right? Read 32.
And upon whatsoever any of them, when they are dead, doth fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel of wood or raiment or skin or sack, whatsoever vessel it be, wherein any work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean unto the even.
So it said, and anything, any of those, when they die, if it falls, it shall be unclean. Wherever these things fall, it shall be unclean. So if it falls inside of a vessel, if it died on your framework, like you were building a house, somebody was framing it, and you found a dead raccoon or something on it. What else? What was the other example that he used? Whether it be a vessel, raiment. If you found it on your clothes, if you killed a slug on your skin, or a sack, like which is like the thing that they like pack potatoes and stuff in, or they carry like corn in, the sackcloth, yeah, sackcloth, and anything like that. If something dies on any of that, those things are unclean. They must be washed. You have to put it in water, and they will be unclean until the evening, right? So if you putting up a house and a raccoon dies and touches that wood, now we gotta go. We literally have to wash that wood, and then you can't utilize it until the evening once it's clean again, right? Verse 33.
Verse 33, in every earthen vessel whereinto any of them falleth, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean, and you shall break it.
Now, earthen vessels, what is that? Back then, we talking bowls, we talking pots, we talking, clay vases, cups, things of that nature. It said if a mouse falls in your cup, you can't say, oh, I'm gonna just go wash it. It said you gotta break it. We gotta throw it away. If something unclean fall in your bowl, trash it. That's why it's funny, because some people will look at us like we crazy, like, man, you doing the most, because brothers would be like, they'd be at a family member's house or something, and they're like, oh, well, we washed the dishes for you, so you can cook what you need to cook. Well, what did y'all just cook? Oh, we just, we made some bacon and this and that. I can't use it. We washed it for you already. It don't matter. It doesn't matter, because it says any whatever it falls in, you need to break it. It gets thrown away. You gonna read something in a minute about what we're supposed to do to the stove if an unclean thing falls in the stove. But something as simple as that, it said, if somebody decided I'm making eggs and cheese sandwiches with bacon and ham in it, and they said, but I'm gonna wash it so you can make what you're going to make. No, I cannot use it. I can't use it. Matter of fact, you're supposed to throw that away. I'm not throwing that away. You know how much money I spent on this? God said throw it away. It's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Read on. 33.
And it shall be unclean, and you shall break it. Want me to start from the beginning? And every... Oh, slack. My bad. And every earthen vessel whereinto any of them falleth, whatsoever in it shall be unclean.
Right.
And you shall break it.
Ye shall break it. Read.
Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water cometh shall be unclean.
Uh-huh.
And all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean.
It said anything that if it's clean food and some of that unclean food touches it, or it falls in water, and that water touches that clean food, that food is now unclean. If that unclean meat, I'm gonna make it simple. This is turkey. This is bacon. Oh, the bacon fell, right? Splashed, hit my turkey. Turkey's unclean. Oh, it didn't touch it in that moment, but, I was swirling around the water after the bacon got in it. Turkey's unclean. Bacon falls on the turkey. Turkey's unclean. That's what it's telling you. If the unclean beast, the unclean meat touches the clean food, clean food's unclean. If it falls in water and the water from the unclean food touches the clean food, unclean. That's what it's telling us. That's how serious the Lord is about this. Read on.
And everything whereupon any part of their carcass falleth shall be unclean.
Come on.
Whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down.
Well, hold on. Let's slow it down. And everything whereupon any part of these unclean animals' carcasses, it will be unclean. Whether it be of what?
Whether it be of oven.
It says it could be your day. It could be your oven. It can be your oven. Read.
Or ranges.
Uh-huh.
For pots, they shall be broken down.
They shall be what?
Broken down.
It says if you got now, mind you, back then they had like brick ovens and whatnot, but it says if you got some unclean food that done fell in your oven, your brick oven, it said it got to go. That you have to break that whole oven down, and you better rebuild it. Here's the kicker, because we had to do it with the temple, with new stones. So basically, let's use it in modern day terms.
Throw it away.
Oh, exactly. My cousin was, they was cooking a ham roast in the oven. Throw that damn oven on the curb. That oven has to go. That pot that he was cooking it into got to go. People like, that's extreme. No. What we tend to forget is more than that, more than its Torah. People forget the Lord is so holy that if anything defiles anything that's holy, it can now defile the Lord. Most High told the people at one point, I'm going to come down in the midst of the people. That's in the book of either Exodus or Leviticus 2. And he said, make sure the men, the words were, tell the men to come not at their wives, because I will be down there to meet with them. And if they lay with their wives, they're going to be unclean, because when you have sex and you ejaculate and all of that, you're unclean. Both sides are unclean until the evening. So if he comes down during the day and y'all did something last night, after the sun done went down, you're not going to be clean till the next night. If he touched that ground is no longer clean. You've defiled the Lord. You got to die. That's how serious it is. There's a reason why the Lord is called the Holy One. The place where the priests would meet him was the Holy of Holies. What does it mean to be holy?
Set apart.
Set apart and sanctified. Why? Who knows the rest of it? Set apart for what? Set apart or sanctified specifically for the service of God. That's what holy is. The Lord is the most holy thing. When you think holy, you think Yahweh. So he can't touch nothing unclean. If ever something that was not ordained touches him, it dies. That's why there was a man, after we got the ark back, in the story where the Philistines were passing the ark around, because every time one of them got the ark, they got hit with a plague. We got the ark back. The ox or the bull or whatever it was on hit a bump. The ark looked like it was about to fall. A man that was not a Levite nor a priest thought himself doing a good deed. Oh no! It said, and immediately the wrath of the Lord was hot at that man, and that man died. Why? Because he was not the holy, set apart, ordained thing to touch that. And now it's no longer clean. That's how serious the Lord is about this. So people look at it like, throw away this pot, throw away this oven. Yes! Yes! Because it's no longer clean. When it talks about being unclean, it's talking about ritualistically. Why is that important? Because there were certain rituals that we had to partake in. You have to bring a sacrifice to the Lord for your sin. Guess what? If you're unclean, when you touch that, it's every single thing that we bring to the Lord. What does it always say? Without what?
Blemish.
Without blemish. The moment your unclean behind touches it to give it up to the Lord, it's blemished. It's not acceptable. The Passover. Sisters on their side. That is probably the one thing to this day that when we're talking about certain things that women can't partake in, a woman on her cycle cannot partake in the Passover, because the Passover is a memorial, a commemoration, but that lamb is still holy. You still look for a lamb with no blemish. You still look, well, you're supposed to be. You're supposed to. You're supposed to be looking for a lamb with no blemish. Look at it. Okay, if you get a goat, okay, the horns ain't broke. He ain't got a broken hoof. He ain't got no swollen foot. He's good. If it's a lamb, same thing, right? You got to make sure you sacrifice it properly. You got to make sure you get, if you don't sacrifice it right and the doo-doo fall out inside of the lamb, it's now defiled. You're supposed to take all of that stuff, take it out, and take it what they call outside of the city. If you do it wrong, the lamb is defiled. If you're giving up defiled things to the Lord, you're defiling the Lord. It's that serious. It's that real. So people will look at it like, oh, y'all doing the most. Listen, what my brother Paul say, if you feel like I'm a fool, I'll be a fool for Christ. Every time. I'm always stand on 10. Even if you think it sounds extreme or crazy, and I'm not going to be like, well, you know, because the Bible said. I'm going to be like, God told me to do this. And I'm always stand 10 on that. And if you think something's wrong with it, there's something wrong with you. Because you playing with God. So the scripture said whether, there was one word that I wanted to look up. Range, which is kayar. Cooking pot, stove, a small portable cooking hearth, or a pair of pots. So whether it be your oven or your oven stove, I guess it was a specific type of pot. Then they have your regular pots. All of that needed to be broken. Throw it away. It gets trashed, right? Read 35 and we're going to read down. Start at 35 again.
Verse 35, and everything whereupon any part of the carcass falleth shall be unclean.
Right, read.
Whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down. For they are unclean and shall be unclean unto you.
They shall be unclean unto you. Read on.
Nevertheless, a fountain or a pit wherein there is plenty of water shall be clean.
Right.
But that which touches their carcass shall be unclean.
So it says now, let's say a horse is drinking at the Mediterranean Sea, and it dies and falls in the water. Damn, the whole sea is unclean. No. If it's a fountain or a well or a pit, which is like a lake or a pond, that's where it's different. But if it's like a bowl of water, it's unclean. If it's a lake or a sea or something like that, and the horse or the ass or the swine falls into it, it's not unclean. But that animal's still unclean, so once you pick it up and have to get rid of it, you're still unclean. That's what it's telling you right here, right? Read on.
And if any part of their carcass fall upon any sowing seed which is to be sown, it shall be clean.
So now, let's say you got a bag of corn seeds. Is it corn seeds? What are they called corn seeds? Damn, y'all not.
Oh, we not farmers.
Y'all not farmers, right? If it's corn seeds or wheat grains or like, let's say it falls on a whole sack of wheat, the wheat is not unclean. But read on.
But if any water be upon the seed in any part of their carcass fall therein, it shall be unclean unto you.
So now, if it's planted, right? If it's planted or if it's like in a sack, if the animal dies and touches it, it's fine. However, if it's watered and it's beginning its process of growing, germinating, all of that good stuff, now it's unclean. Dig it up, throw it away. Why the Most High did it like that, I don't know, but he said it, so I'm standing on it at the end of the day. But the Lord, he gave, if it ain't got activated yet, it's still good. If you don't put water on it and you done activated it, it's no good. Throw it away. Read on.
And if any beast of which ye may eat die, he that toucheth in the carcass thereof shall be unclean until the evening. It says,
and if any beast of which you can eat, if it dies, he that toucheth the carcass thereof shall be unclean till the evening, right? So this is talking about, not that you slaughtered it. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about if it dies of natural causes and you touch it, it's unclean. It's unclean to you. Or, yeah, it's unclean to you and you'll be unclean. That's why even the scriptures specify you can't eat, what do they call it? Meat strangled of itself. So what does that mean?
Or die of itself.
Die of itself, right? Any animal that dies that you did not slaughter, that you didn't deal with, that you didn't slaughter properly, you're not supposed to partake of it. But This is where we get into the difference between Israel. Exactly. This is where you get into the difference between an Israelite and a heathen. You can take that same animal, cut it up or whatever the case is, take it to the Elamites down the street and say, hey, I got some fresh goat for you. And you can sell it to them. Why? I couldn't tell you. My assumption, this is Darash's assumption only, right? So you can take it with a grain of salt. If it died of itself, that means it was sick. That means there was a blemish. My assumption. So if it died of itself, there's a strong chance there was a blemish on it. And so you shouldn't partake of it. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, too, is if it died of itself, if you don't cut the entrails out immediately when the animal is killed,
That too.
it's gonna make them. It's not gonna be no good anymore.
That too. Let's say it died and we saw it 2 days later.
If you dumb enough to eat it, then boy, you.
Hey, the heathen's got a different stomach. The heathen's got a different stomach. I'm just saying.
You're right.
Verse.
That usury, when you say how we could do them other nations, Most High ain't.
Yeah, the Most High. Look. Most High said,
I don't care how you do this.
"I'm all about the Israelite economy." That's what he care about. Verse 40.
Verse 40. And he that eateth of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes, and he unclean until the even.
So now it says, if you eat it, you're gonna be unclean. Read on.
He also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even.
Read.
And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten.
It says anything that creep up. We talking snakes. We talking insects, or not insects. Is a snail considered an insect?
Kind.
Okay, snails, slugs, ants. What else creeps? What's that doggone thing? Reptiles, like lizards. All of that's unclean, right? It says all of that's not only unclean, it's abominable. So you see certain things is unclean, certain things are abominable, right? Read on.
And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth shall be an abomination. It
42. Oh, Salakia, finish that up.
and shall not be eaten.
42.
Whatsoever goeth upon the belly, and whatsoever goeth upon all four, or whatsoever hath more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, them ye shall not eat, and they are an abomination.
Any of y'all ever wanted to eat a centipede or a millipede? Nah. What about a spider? Okay, well, just checking. If you did, just know you're not supposed to.
Might be eating,
Just checking, because I'm letting you know if you want to, you're not supposed to. All right, read on. Verse 43.
And you shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping thing that creepeth, neither shall you make yourselves unclean with them, that ye should be defiled thereby.
You ain't supposed to partake of none of that, or you will be abominable. Read on.
For I am the Lord your God. Ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves.
Sanctify yourselves. Read.
And you should be holy, for I am
You shall
holy.
be holy, because I am holy. You need to set yourself apart for my service specifically. Read.
Neither shall ye defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. For I am the Lord that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt.
Read.
To be your God. Ye shall therefore be holy, for I am holy.
So he gave us the whole rundown of what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can pick up, what you're not supposed to pick up. What if the dead animal falls inside of your water? What if the dead animal falls inside of your pond or your well? Or what if it falls on your seeds? Because that happens. What if it falls in your cup or in your pot or your stove? He said, I gave you the rundown for all that, because I don't want you to be unclean. I don't want you to be defiled. So, no, this is how you're supposed to be moving. No, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Know that these are my rules when we're talking about consumption, right? Or not being able to consume, right? Leviticus 20. Watch this. Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 25.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 20, and verse 25. You shall therefore put differences between clean beasts and unclean, and between unclean fowls and clean.
Uh-huh.
And ye shall not make your souls abominable.
Your what?
Your souls abominable by beast,
Uh-huh.
or by fowl, or by any manner of living thing that creepeth on the ground, which I have separated from you as unclean.
It said, don't make your souls abominable, detestable, deplorable with these things. Because again, Leviticus 11, I mean, you know, he said we ain't supposed to eat it, but it's really for our health. Like, you think God gonna really kill me for eating pork? He just said your soul will be abominable by partaking of these things. Not, you know, oh, it's okay. It's just, see, I was trying to make sure you would live longer and be healthier. No, he said your soul will be abominable to me if you partake in these unclean things. A lot of times, people only read parts of the book. A lot of times, people will read and this goes right over their head. Most High was not playing. He said, do not, I separated you from them on purpose. Not your physical vessel, your physical tabernacle is going to be defiled. Your soul is going to be defiled. Your soul is going to be contaminated. Your soul is going to be corrupted. And the scriptures say there's no corrupt thing that's going to enter into the kingdom. So yeah, you're not going to make the kingdom if you eating abominable foods. That's Bible. Let's go backwards. Leviticus 7. We're going to start at 19.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 7 and 19. And the flesh that toucheth any unclean thing shall not be eaten.
The flesh that toucheth any unclean thing shall not be eaten. What is that talking about? Again, any clean food. You had some lamb, and that lamb, you done seasoned it. It's been marinated, and your pig died right next to you and bump your barbecue pit, and the lamb falls on the dead pig.
They try to cook you some food. Say, hey man, I didn't cook this with it, but you put all that swine next to that chicken. Man, we don't want that.
Yeah, no. Here's the thing, though. And that's why I'm gonna grab the scripture in a minute because I didn't even think to grab it. That's because people will sit there. I've seen this. Remember when I said people will say, people will have itching ears and basically justify sin. A perfect example of this, and I thought it was a joke. Somebody used it as an example once. I said, nigga, ain't nobody gonna do that. I don't remember what we was doing and where we was at, but I heard this, and I said, I never thought I would have heard it, right? Somebody told me, because we was talking about eating unclean foods and cleaning unclean foods, right? You got to keep the dietary law. Niggas will justify sin real quick. Well, technically speaking, because you know the Torah, right? You know the laws, right? Well, technically speaking, everything in the grocery store is defiled. So why you eating anything in there? Because it said if the unclean thing touched the clean thing is unclean now. And if you touch that, you unclean. So guess what? Everything in there, the shrimp is next to the red snapper. Guess what? That red snapper is unclean. Guess what? And it's sitting next to the salmon. Guess what? The salmon is unclean too. So guess what? All of it's unclean. So you telling me I can't eat the shrimp, but you gonna eat that? That's unclean too. I said, this nigga just justified being wicked. That's crazy. And you know what's so funny? That was probably one of the few times where I had to pause because I was processing everything that was said. I was like, he's not wrong. So then I'm rolling through my scriptural Rolodex because I'm like, there's an answer for this. Let me find it in my head real quick. Because I was like, that was a great point. But we talking about willful sin. You know God says specifically not to eat this. And you like, well, everything else is defiled. I mean, what's the difference? Real quick, that too. Don't add sin to sin. But real quick, there's a prophecy on this. and it was a curse. That doesn't mean we don't continue to strive to do righteously. I think it's Ezekiel. I'm going to pull it up real quick. We'll go to it real quick just to deal with that point. Ezekiel 4. Let's deal with it real quick. Then we're going to get back on track. That was one of the, I was like, yo, that right there is some Bible gymnastics for you. That was insane. Ezekiel chapter 4, let's read verse 13. This was prophecy.
Ezekiel 4, verse 13. And the Lord said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread.
Eat their what?
Eat their defiled bread.
Come on.
Among the Gentiles.
Come on.
Whether I will drive them.
That's judgment. That don't mean you go out of your way to add sin to sin. Well, everything's defiled anyway, so I might as well eat the unlawful things. No. That's judgment. That's prophetic judgment. Everything you get gonna be defiled.
Well, we know the laws ain't done away with, so it ain't.
Yeah, but but here's the thing. If the laws ain't done away with, you shouldn't be eating that salmon. You shouldn't be eating nothing that come out of a grocery store. Nothing. That's where we get into don't add sin to sin. That's where we get into the grace of the Lord. That right there. Not, well, I sinned, but God's going to give me grace. I willfully did it. No. It's when you're trying to adhere to the laws of God and you got situations like that, like everything is defiled here, but I'm still going to find the things that God said I can partake of, and I'm going to get that. That's where your grace and mercy comes in. Leviticus 22. I don't think we finished. Go back to Leviticus 7 real quick. For those that are just tuning in, this is like, I done lost count. What is this, I think this is like my 7th or 8th segment of Through Torah. We going through the different segments of the laws of Torah. We done touched everything from dress code, the Sabbath, the dietary law. I don't even remember what else we done did like 5 of them. But we're literally just going through the Torah, really getting an understanding of the things that are in the Torah. So now we've gotten to the point of understanding uncleanness according to the Torah. Leviticus 7, we read Salakia. Start at 19 again. We're going to read down, 19 to 21.
Book of Leviticus, chapter 7 and verse 19. And the flesh that touches any unclean thing shall not be eaten.
Come on.
It shall be burnt with fire, and as for the flesh, all that be clean shall eat thereof. But the soul that eateth of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings, that pertaining unto the Lord.
Oh, Salakia, this is a whole different situation. My bad. It says, and the flesh that toucheth any unclean thing shall not be eaten. Then it says, it shall be burnt with fire. And as for the flesh, all that be clean shall eat thereof. So you can eat of the stuff that is clean, not the stuff that got defiled. It says, but the soul that eateth of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings that pertain unto the Lord, having his uncleanness upon him, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. The Lord was so damn serious. He said, let you had a wet dream the night before, and then you went to try to eat of the sacrifice before the sun went down. He said, you will be cut off from the people. Y'all probably laughing, but I mean, it happens. But it said you cannot partake of the sacrifice. That's it. Let you be on your cycle, and you say, oh, I want to go partake of the lamb. You will be removed And it's so me and Yashimai talk about this all the time. Me and the apostle Yashimai talk about this all the time. We're like, because we're in the city, and because before we came into the truth, we had friends in the world, different nations, and all of that good stuff. We don't understand the severity of being cut off. It used to be Israel is all here. You got a few other nations that would come in and do business and leave. You had some that would stay amongst us as servants, but it was just our community. And then the Edomites would be miles that way. Moabites would be miles that way. The Philistines would be miles north. The Egyptians would be miles south. It said, you get cut off from your people. You know what that looks like? Imagine you break one of these laws. They find out. They say, roll them up. Pack up all of your, open the gate, kick them out the city. Go find somewhere to go. Now, what's worse, yes, ostracized, but what's worse is that back then, if you got caught lacking and they swooped you up and made you a slave, or they swooped you up and sold you, it wasn't no officers that was out looking for you. It wasn't no situation where you could put out an APB. You can file a missing persons report.
Nah, they didn't already turn you over to the wolves.
Yeah. You done got the boot. You got pirates out there. It was pirates. I don't know what they call land pirates, but they had land pirates that will swoop you up, tie you up, because you out there dolo. You got people out there that merchants and stuff that will be out there. Oh, we found one. Hunting. You're a fair game.
It probably be circling the camp like sharks in the circling the ships.
They got one.
You know what I'm saying? They threw one up, another one out. We got him.
Got him. We don't understand what it means to be cut off from the people. If you was unclean because you was on your cycle, or because you and your rib did what y'all did at 4 in the morning, and then you had sacrifices being put up at 4 in the afternoon and the sun hadn't set and you're still unclean, they will cut you off and kick you out. The Lord was that serious. Don't mess up my offerings. If you unclean, stay away. It was that big a deal. This was not a game.
And just think about it. If all you've been around your people all your life, and your customs and your ways and everything, and then you kicked out, and you don't know.
And it's not like you got weaned off. It's not like you got weaned off. Yeah. It was like cold turkey boots. You got to go. The Lord wasn't playing. He was serious. What was that? Verse 20, verse 21.
7 and 21.
Yeah, 7 and 21.
Verse 21, moreover, the soul that shall touch any unclean thing as
the uncleanness.
As the uncleanness of man, or any unclean beast, or any abominable unclean thing, and eat of the flesh of the sacrifice, peace offerings, which pertain unto the Lord, even that soul should be cut off from his people.
So he was what is the word? Clarifying what he said the verse before. If you partake of any of these offerings and you are not clean, you are gone. You out of here. Expeditiously.
Forthwith.
Gone. Leviticus 22. Start at verse 4. Leviticus 22 and 4.
It's the book of Leviticus, chapter 22 and verse 4. What man soever of the seed of Aaron is a leper, or hath a running issue, he shall not eat of the holy things until he be clean. And who touches anything that is unclean by the deed, or is a man whose seed goeth from him.
So, if the sons of Aaron are unclean, if they touch anything that's dead, if they was with their wife the night before, They are unclean. They cannot partake of this. So again, this was the main specification. Like, this was the main purpose of what uncleanness was. If you're unclean, you can't partake of these things. Now, there were certain things, like we said, when we talking about, like I said, certain uncleanness is not a sin. What do I mean by that? Because you'll read and you'll be like, well, the scriptures say after the woman has a child, she still has to give a sin offering. Technically, yes. But it was really an unclean offering, a ritual, a ritualistic cleansing offering, essentially, is what it was, right? As opposed to like a sin offering, which is like a goat or a lamb, or depending on the offense, a bull, right? It wasn't one of those. It was a separate type of offering for a separate type of trespass, which technically was just something to sanctify and cleanse you again. The woman would sacrifice turtle doves, right? Which we'll get to that. If not today, we'll get to it in part 2. So if you were unclean, I'm going to hit this nail on the head. I'm going to beat this dead horse. If you are unclean, you cannot partake of anything holy. I know some people will be like, oh, if you're unclean, like I've heard people, if men and women are unclean, they can't come to Sabbath class. That's not true. Well, because this is the temple. No, the hell it's not. Not in the middle of Babylon, it's not. This is a sanctuary. This is the church. This is a sanctuary. That's it. Where we're striving to obey the laws of God. I don't see no altar in here. There's no Levites giving sacrifices of the holy things in here. That was the most important thing. Don't touch these holy things. You can't come near this tabernacle and touch the mercy. Be near the mercy seat. Go into the Holy of Holies. Can't touch the ark. Can't bring no sacrifice when you unclean. That's what it was about. But these are the different types of ways you can make yourself unclean. Here's a question. How many of y'all knew that rule about if the unclean stuff touch your pots, and if the unclean stuff touch your oven, and if the unclean stuff touch your cups? Watch this. How many of y'all done read the Torah before, though? Sometimes we be reading and it go right over our head. See?
I notice there's a lot of stuff that we do not knowing that it's Torah or not knowing that it's in a book. That we just instinctively do. Like, as far as, I know before I was in the troop, we never liked it, food that was not cooked all the way.
Yeah, it's just a black thing.
But I'm saying, but it's cultural. You know what
God,
I'm saying?
yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, nah.
But you see now, still, Bishop Tazayawan
Now
used
the
this.
juices and stuff, it can't touch it. It can't, yeah.
No, it's still unclean.
No, you just don't know.
They just
Oh,
pull
they
it
just
off.
pull it off the top. Oh, wow.
That's where repentance comes in. Right. Yeah, it was already pre-made. Yeah. Here's the crazy part, though. Depending on who you talk to, people will be like, well, my cousins, they ordered a pepperoni and sausage pizza. I just pulled the pepperoni and sausage off. Bishop Tazayawan gave me the coldest analogy years. I was like maybe a month in the truth. I wasn't eating it at the time, but I forgot how the conversation even came up. And he said, I'm going to give you an analogy. He said, imagine, let's take away pepperoni. Let's take away sausage. He said, imagine you about to eat some pizza and a bird fly over it and doo-doo all over it. He said, are you just going to wipe off the doo-doo? You just gonna clean the doo-doo off? Or you like, nah, it's tainted. Like, it done got in the cheese and the sauce and the oil and the grease. I'm throwing it away. He said, so why do you think the grease from the pepperoni and the sausage and stuff ain't already defiled the pizza? I was like, it's a great point. That's a great point. But a lot of us, we don't think. Some people will feel like, oh, you're too strenuous on the law. No, God was strenuous on the law. It becomes strenuous when you don't love it. Because it's nothing like people. It's kind of not even choose to ignore it. If you don't appreciate it and you don't love it. Like, people will look at certain people and be like, man, you eat so healthy and so clean. It's got to be hard. Not if you love it. Oh, you work out all the time, or you do this. Oh, it got to be so. Not if you love it. Oh, Dave told me you can't. Oh, my God, it's so hard. It's so. Not if you embrace it and you love it. Oh, you got kids. Oh, my God, you can't do nothing. I know your life is so hard. It's so not if you love it. Everything is fairly easy if you love it. These laws of God are very easy if you love it. Why do I say that? Because if you love it, you're going to go the extra mile to make sure I prep right. Otherwise, you'll be like, oh, damn, the Sabbath is coming up so fast. Oh, my God, I didn't get stuff done. Oh, my God, it's about to be so hard. See, oh, man, the day be going by so fast. Oh, the sun is going down so fast.
What you're doing is you're making it grievous.
You making it grievous. Oh, told me coming up, man, we not about to be eating for 24 hours, bro. Man, I'm going to just sleep it off. It's grievous to you. It's grievous to you. The laws of God are easy if you love it and you embrace it. If you don't, you're going to feel like it's extreme. You're going to feel like it's too hard. But that just means you don't love God enough. That just means you don't have enough discipline. Is it God's fault that you don't have the discipline? Is it God's fault that you don't love and embrace his laws that are for your betterment and for your proof to show that you love him and it's the very least that you can do? Is it his fault that you don't understand that this is the very least I can do is obey God in these things that he's asking of me? These are things that we don't be thinking about, because even when we keep these laws, sometimes we do it with a selfish mindset. I have to do it, so I guess I'll do it. I mean, I guess I got to get the fridges. But I don't really like the way they look. They cramping my style. Man, you can style them things however you want. But you're not going to like them if you don't embrace it. That's just the truth. These laws ain't strenuous. These laws ain't hard. These laws ain't grievous if you love it. Leviticus, we gonna end it off with this last part. I try to keep my lessons like an hour and a half ish. And we're gonna pick up on part 2 next week. Leviticus 12. Majority of the purification rules and laws and the laws of uncleanness, they sit right in here in Leviticus. Leviticus 12, let's read 1 through 4.
Leviticus 12, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived a seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days.
Read.
According to the days of the separation, for her infirmity shall she be unclean.
So it says she shall be unclean 7 days, just like when she's on her cycle. That's what it's talking about, the days of her infirmity and uncleanness. She shall be unclean 7 days. Read on.
And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
So the young men, the baby boys, the 8th day, they're supposed to be circumcised. Read on.
And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days.
So she had to be, she was set apart for 7 days, and then she had to continue in her uncleanness, meaning she was still set aside for an additional 33 days. So what's 33 plus 7?
40 days.
40. So the woman is unclean for 40 days after she has a man-child. Read on.
She shall touch no hallowed thing.
That's what it means to be unclean. You can't touch nothing holy. You can't touch the Passover lamb. You can't touch an animal that needs to be sacrificed to the Lord. You can't touch any of the grain offerings that are about to be given up to the Lord, any of the peace offerings, any of the free will offerings, any of the goodwill offerings. You can't touch none of that when you are unclean. Read on.
Nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled.
It says that you can't even come into the sanctuary. You can't even pull up. You can't even pull up to the congregation. Because why? Where were they congregating? At the temple, at the tabernacle, amongst the priests near the sacrifices. So you couldn't even come amongst them at that time. Read.
But if she bear a maid child,
So now if she has a daughter, read.
then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation.
So she's going to be unclean 2 weeks as in her separation. We're still talking about like your cycle, read.
And she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 60 days.
So 2 weeks, which is 14 days, 3 score, a score is 20. 3 score is 60. So 66 days plus 14 days is what? 66 plus 14. 80. So she shall be unclean 80 days if she has a daughter. 40 days for a son, 80 days for a daughter, right? Read.
And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled for a
Go ahead.
for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering,
Uh-huh.
and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering,
Uh-huh.
unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation,
Uh-huh.
unto the priest,
Uh-huh.
who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her.
Uh-huh.
And she shall be clean from the issue of her blood.
Uh-huh.
This is the law for her that hath borne a male or a female.
So she's supposed to bring forth this offering so she can be cleansed from her blood, her blood, the blood of her purification. Right? Read.
And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons.
2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Go ahead.
It doesn't say turtle doves.
I know, but Go ahead.
Yeah, the one for the burnt offering, the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean.
So then she'll be cleansed after that, right? And this is the last one. Go to Numbers. Touch this real quick. Touch on this real quick. Numbers 19. Book of Numbers, chapter 19. And then we'll pick up on part 2 next week because there are other laws of uncleanness that some people don't even know about, right? I ain't even gonna tell y'all. Y'all gonna wait till next week. Numbers 19. Numbers 19, start at 11.
Numbers 19, verse 11. He that toucheth the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days.
If you touch the dead body of a person, you're unclean 7 days. You touch the dead body of a person, it's 7 days. You touch the corpse of an animal, it's until even. Read on.
He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day.
You shall, so you're unclean 7 days, but by the 3rd day you need to have purified yourself, gone and washed yourself, gone and it's a whole process, right? Read on.
And on the 7th day he shall be clean.
Right, but you need to make sure you do it on the 3rd day, and you'll be clean the 7th day. Read.
But if he purify not himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean.
So you're not going to be clean if you don't. there was very strict regulations. 3rd day, purify yourself. 7th day, you'll be clean. If you don't do it on the 3rd day, you will not be clean. But watch this. Read on.
Whosoever touches the dead body of any man that is dead and purified not himself defileth the tabernacle of the Lord.
So if you don't do it that way, you're going to defile the tabernacle of the Lord from that point. Because you won't be considered unclean. Guess what? You can't bring no offerings to the Lord. You can't be around the Levites. You can't do. You are in danger of what's the word? Tainting the holy things.
He's talking about right now. He's talking about your body, the tabernacle, right?
No, he's talking about the actual tabernacle.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
if you're around those, because remember, we were in Israel. We were around the people, and we were at the bare minimum. We was at the tabernacle once a week. Mind you, if you go read about the Levites were offering every day. There were offerings given up every day. Because remember, there's more than one type of offering. There were sin offerings that had to be brought. There were free will offerings and goodwill offerings and peace offerings that could be brought. And it was a Levite's job. They had basically rotating shifts. And all they did was burn offerings, slaughter the animal, burn the offerings. If you read Leviticus 1-4, you see the whole process. How many of you guys have seen us do the Passover slaughter and that whole process? How long that process take, Malachi? Few hours. Now imagine doing that all day. You have to slaughter it, let the blood come out, remove the insides, take the insides out, take it to an unclean place. In some instances you have to place it on the altar. Certain times you have to cut off. Okay, so the shoulder will go to the Lord. The rest of it will go to the Levites. They were butchering all day. So guess what? You were bound to run into them. And if you touch anything unclean and you give it to them, it's unclean. That sacrifice is unclean. You've defiled the tabernacle. You've defiled the Levites. You defiled the holy things. So if you didn't purify yourself properly on the 3rd day, by the 7th day, you were not clean. And if you had to give an offering, or if you decided to give an offering, it's now unclean. That's how serious it was. Read on.
This is the law. When a man dieth in a tent, all that come into the tent and all that is in the tent shall be unclean.
So read verse 13, Salakia. Read 13.
Whosoever toucheth the dead body of any man that is dead and purifieth not himself defiles the tabernacle of the Lord. And that soul shall be cut off from Israel.
Remember what we talked about earlier? Most High wasn't playing. You decide not to keep that law, you get in the boot. Read on.
Because the water of the separation was not sprinkled upon him. He shall be unclean. His uncleanness and yet upon him.
Is yet upon him. Read.
This is the law. When a man dieth in a tent, all that come into the tent and all that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days.
So, for example, let's say you go to a funeral and you inside of, a building, a church building, or whatever the case is, and you go up to the, near the casket and all of that, you would be considered unclean. You are in that housing, dwelling unit. Or if somebody dies in their room and you don't touch them, you go in the room and you don't touch them, but you're like, oh, they're dead. You're unclean. In that dwelling space, in that area, you would now be considered unclean. Read on. 15.
And every upon vessel
open,
which had when every open vessel which has no covering bound upon it is unclean.
If he died with his bottle of kava over there and he didn't have the top on it, that kava's unclean. He has some water and it's sitting right there, it's unclean. Now why? I couldn't tell you. I have to look into, I guess, what toxins or whatever comes out of the body when you die. I don't know. Yes, that's the only thing that I can think of. But, at the end of the day, it's because the Most High said so. Verse 16, Con.
And whosoever toucheth one that is slain with a sword in the open field or a dead body or a home of a man or a grave shall be unclean 7 days.
So whoever touches the bones, you touch someone's skeleton. Or if you touch their grave. So, some people like to go visit their parents. I ain't seen my auntie in a while. I want to go sit next to the tombstone. Now you're considered unclean for 7 days. So just make sure you don't do that around the time of Passover. You'll be okay. 17.
And for an unclean person, they shall take of their ashes of the burnt heifer.
Take of the ashes of the burnt heifer. Go ahead.
Of purification for sin, and running waters shall be put therein in a vessel. And a clean person shall take hyssop and dip it in the water and sprinkle it upon the tent.
So it's telling you how you purify these situations. So it says, for an unclean person, they shall take the ashes of a burnt heifer of purification for sin and running water, and they shall put both of those into a vessel. Then it says, and a clean person shall take the hyssop and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the tent and upon all the vessels and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone or one slain or one dead or a grave. So they're saying if you touch a grave, touch a dead body, anything like that, this is how you're supposed to purify yourself. Of course, we don't give physical sacrifice anymore, so we don't have the ashes of a heifer. We don't have hyssop to mix, we don't have the ashes of the cow to mix with the hyssop and put it in the water and sprinkle or spray it or whatever you want to call it on us, right? But that's what you would do in that particular time. Then it says, and the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day. So the 3rd day you're supposed to do this. And on the 7th day, he shall purify himself and wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and shall be clean at even. So you still got to wash your clothes and all of that stuff by the 7th day. Verse 20.
But the man that shall be unclean and shall not purify himself, that soul should be cut off from among the congregation, because he had defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water of separation have not been sprinkled upon him. He is unclean.
Read.
And this shall be a perpetual statute.
This will be a statute forever. Read.
Unto them that he that sprinkleth the water of separation shall wash his clothes, and he that toucheth the water of separation shall be unclean until even.
Verse 22.
And whatsoever the unclean person toucheth shall be unclean, and the soul that toucheth it shall be unclean until even.
So now that's the other piece. I'm unclean. I touch Amatazah's phone. Amatazah got to pick up his phone because he got to take a call. Amatazah's now unclean. I'm going around shaking everybody's hands, giving high fives. All y'all unclean. You ask for some of my water, and I give you my bottle, and you touch my bottle. You unclean. So when you was unclean, people used to be like, sit your ass in the house and don't come out. Stay there for 3 days. We'll check on you. That's how serious it was, because the Most High is serious about his holiness. So he had to be serious about your holiness. Problem is, we don't understand it, therefore we don't embrace it. It is very important. It is very pertinent that we really begin to understand these laws and why they were put in place. So, that was part 1. Next week, we'll do part 2, because if we continue with part 2, we'd probably be done in another hour. And it's 11:15 out here. And for all of my lovely people that stayed online with me, it's like, what is it, 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock in some of you guys' areas. So, with that being said, all praise to the Most High. For those of you who are new, I have this spiel that I do at the end. For those of you who are not new, get ready for the spiel. Every first Monday of the month, we have what's called Bible Q&A. Come in and ask all of your biblical, historical questions, biblical, doctrinal questions. All of your questions, come ask. If you're scared to ask your leaders, your pastor, whatever, that's what we're here for. We don't profess to know everything, but the things that we do know, we will give to you. If we don't have the answer, we'll be sure to go back, do our research, find the answer, and get it to you. Every first Monday. Every Monday after that, we have our Spanish class, Los Discípulos de las Palabras, which is our Spanish class with the Apostle Ash. Every Tuesday is Bible Basics. Every Wednesday is World History According to the Bible. Every second and fourth Thursday is Stick to the Script. Every Friday, we have the lineup of the Blue Strip with the Apostle Yashimai, Room 144 with one of the bishops or the Apostle Ash. And then it closes out with my class, my segment, Sound Doctrine. Saturday, we have War for the Kingdom at 2 p.m. our time, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, with our bishop out in Georgia, Bishop Yazaquel. His segment is called War for the Kingdom. And then we close out with Bishop Tazayuan's Feed the Sheep. If brothers and sisters have any questions, hit us up at reply@truenation.org. Biblical questions, scriptural questions, questions about membership. If you want to get boots on the ground in your state and you want to build and be a part of this vehicle to do the work, reply@truenation.org and we will get back to you. I feel like there's something that I'm missing. There's a piece of my segment. I haven't done this in a month and now I forgot some of it. Dang, that's going to bother me. Anyway, we give all praise, all honor, and all glory to the Most High. This has been another segment of Sound Doctrine with myself and my brother Amatazah. Lord willing, we see y'all next week for part 2. Y'all be sure to tap in tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time or 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Bishop Tazayuan's class. We love y'all, Israel. Shalom.
Mix, y'all.